So when it comes to open ear headphones, bone conduction headphones have been the choice for many of us for years, but recently air conduction headphones have been becoming increasingly popular, like the SHOKZ OpenFit earbuds. The sound quality that you can get from air conduction is much more rich and full and are going to be a great choice if you're wanting more than what you can get out of bone conduction. And based on the popularity of their OpenFits, SHOKZ now has these. So these are the new OpenFit Air truly wireless headphones, which have nearly everything from their original OpenFits and drops the price down significantly without much compromise, and these are pretty incredible for the price. So before we get into what these new OpenFit Airs are all about, let's talk really quick about why you may want open ear headphones, and that mainly has to do with situational awareness, where you want to be able to listen to music or podcasts but still be able to hear your surroundings, whether that's in an office, walking, running, or cycling outside, or maybe even around the house if you have kids or something like that. Open ear headphones make it so you can still hear things going on around you, and this could be especially useful in sports scenarios where you want to be aware of stuff like traffic, other trail users, or maybe even those big fuzzy forest animals that you probably don't really want to run into. And SHOKZ has had their bone conduction headphones for quite some time, which work really well and have been the go-to for a long time, but there's really only a certain level of sound quality that you can get with that sort of technology, which have these pods that vibrate against your cheekbone that you then interpret as sound. That's where the industry has kind of shifted gears a bit and adapted by coming out with open ear air conduction headphones, which, by the way, is just a fancy way of saying speakers, since that's actually how speakers transmit sound. But these deliver sound quality that's much closer to what you can get from a traditional closed-off in-ear earbud, while still having the benefits of being able to hear your surroundings. Now, I do still think there's a place for bone conduction though, and we'll talk about that here in just one bit, but I've come to prefer air conduction for most of the activities that I do, and these new OpenFit Airs are a solid option when it comes to open ear air conduction headphones. And one more thing before we get into the OpenFit Airs, I also wanted to mention that SHOKZ is also announcing their new OpenSwim Pro headphones, which basically combine their swim-specific OpenSwim headphones with their OpenRun headphones. So these are basically SHOKZ's most versatile bone conduction headphones that you can use for pretty much any activity, whether that's above or below water. And I actually haven't had a chance to completely finish my review on these quite yet, but look for that in about a week or so. Anyhow, when it comes to these new OpenFit Airs, well, the big ticket item is that these come in at a very reasonable $120 price tag versus the original OpenFits that run at $180. So let's talk about what these have and don't have compared to their higher end counterpart. So just like the original OpenFits, these new OpenFit Airs use their direct pitch air conduction technology to deliver sound. And to get into probably one of the main things that you want to know, these sound really good. And it was actually kind of surprising to me how good these sound for the price. They deliver a nice full sound profile that works well for all kinds of music, whether that's rock, hip hop, singer-songwriter type stuff. And they have a good amount of clarity with vocals and voices, so they work well for podcasts as well. The original OpenFits are just slightly more rich and full than the OpenFit Airs, where the original OpenFits use higher end materials for the speaker, but it's not necessarily like a night and day difference either by any means. The OpenFit Airs still deliver great sound quality, and it's really only when I went back and forth between the two where I was like, sure, the OpenFits do sound better with a little bit more on the low end and also a little bit more clarity, but I was never disappointed with the Airs. I think they sound great. And you can basically think of these as splitting the difference between a traditional pair of in-ear earbuds and bone conduction headphones, where they strike a nice balance with good sound quality along with situational awareness. They won't be able to deliver the super low-end bass that you can get out of a completely closed-off design, but that's just kind of the nature of an open ear headphone. But for me, again, these do not disappoint, and this style of headphone is usually my typical go-to for most sports. And then you can also customize the sound profile to your liking in the SHOKZ app. So they have 4 preset equalizer settings for different listening preferences. But one difference here between these and the original OpenFits is that you don't have the ability to create a completely customized equalizer setting, but I've actually found the out-of-the-box setting on these to be quite enjoyable. Oh, and really quick, if you're finding the information in this video to be useful, do me a quick favor and just hit that like button down below. It's a small thing that you can do to help this video and the channel out quite a bit, and I appreciate it. So when it comes to fit and comfort, while both the originals as well as the Airs are incredibly comfortable, I actually think that the Airs are more comfortable. So the pods on these Airs are actually slightly bigger than the originals, and they do also weigh just ever, and I mean ever so slightly more, but I think the reason that they are more comfortable is due to the difference in the ear hook, where with the originals, they actually house the battery inside the backside of the loop, and with the Airs, they put the battery inside the pod, which is why it's a little bit bigger. But the hook or loop on the Airs, which is made out of a mix of nickel and titanium, is now lighter and more flexible. However, the silicone material that they use on the outside outside of each earbud is supposed to be slightly softer on the originals, but again, I really couldn't tell a difference here. But basically, it's kind of like the sound quality where it's kind of splitting hairs here, where both of these are very light and extremely comfortable, where I oftentimes forget that I'm actually wearing them. What's also kind of interesting here is that the Airs actually have a more premium look to them for some reason, with just a bit more glossy materials used on the outside. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But when it comes to specifically how secure these are for fitness and sports, so I find these to be great for anything like in the gym. They're also great for running. And I've also used them for road biking and gravel biking. They're great. Where I wouldn't use these though would be for stuff like mountain biking or rock climbing or something along those lines where there's a chance of losing an earbud. That's where a set of their bone conduction earbuds or like their Open Run Pros have an advantage, where those have a wraparound design where you'd have to be in a pretty bad situation for those to actually come off. Being that these are independent earbuds, there's just a greater risk of these coming off, even though they do use an over-the-ear ear hook design. Now, you'll see on their website that when you do a product comparison, their OpenFits actually aren't listed under their sport headphones. And I did ask SHOKZ about this, and it's not that the OpenFits aren't intended for sports. It's just that their bone conduction headphones are the better option when it comes to sport headphones. So you can absolutely use these for most sports, but if you're looking for the most security as well as a little bit more water resistance, go with one of their bone conduction models. But like I said, I've used the OpenFits for basically everything except for those rougher activities. Oh, and these also do work with glasses and sunglasses just fine. They also work fine with hats, they work fine with helmets, and they're also comfortable with stocking caps. Where they may not work quite as well, they're going to be with full face helmets, where the side of the helmet may push portions of the earbud against your head, which isn't all that comfortable. I've heard of some people that are okay with it, but at least for the full face helmets that I have, I didn't necessarily find these to work. Oh, and then one more thing is that you can also use these independently with just one earbud at a time if you'd like. Now, in terms of how these handle wind, I find that these do a really good job at handling wind, where I can still hear the music playing even with more wind, like at higher speeds on a bike. I do find that I have to have them maybe a few notches higher on the volume slider to overcome the wind, but I can still hear up to around like 20 miles per hour or so on my bike. It is kind of interesting though, with bone conduction headphones like their Open Run Pros, those are only maybe marginally better in wind, where I can hear just a tiny bit more clearly with those, but the sound isn't quite as full though with those either. So I think both styles do fine, but my preference is the fuller sound profile on the OpenFits or the OpenFit Airs versus the ever so slightly better handling of wind noise on their bone conduction headphones like the Open Run Pros. Now, another concern that can come up with open ear headphones is sound leakage, since sound is actually being transmitted through the air and they're not completely closed off, but they've been able to do a good job at isolating the direction of the sound into the ear rather than outwards with the orientation of the speaker. So it really shouldn't be a concern about others being able to hear your calls or any guilty pleasure tracks like Michael Bolton or anything like that, unless you were in like a completely quiet room with someone like right next to you. The OpenFit Airs use Bluetooth 5.2, and they do also have multi-point pairing where you can have them paired up to 2 devices at once. And this is going to be the same as the original OpenFits. And for water resistance, again, same as the originals with an IP54 water resistance rating. Now, although IP54 isn't the highest water resistance rating out there, I found these to be just fine for most sports as long as they don't get completely submerged. And for some comparison, the IP54 rating is about the same water resistance rating as something like the Apple AirPods Pros, which I haven't had any problems with those either. When it comes to buttons and controls, the OpenFit Airs have capacitive touch buttons on the outside of each earbud, which work just like they're supposed to, where you can do stuff like play, pause, skip tracks, as well as adjust the volume, and you can customize the controls in the app. The actual touch area is also quite large here too, where you can touch on pretty much any portion of the flat portion on the outside of the pod, but it's also precise enough too where I actually didn't experience any accidental presses or touches when inserting or removing a pod. The long press behavior though seems to take a little bit longer to respond than what I prefer, so not sure if that could be adjusted with a software update, but it seemed to be just a bit too long for that kind of behavior since I didn't actually experience any accidental presses or touches, so that could probably be a little bit shorter. Now, can you use these buttons with gloves or stocking caps on? So with thin gloves as well as thin hats, good to go, and they totally work, but with thicker hats and gloves, it's a little bit more hit and miss. And for battery life, the OpenFit Airs have an advertised 6 hours of listening time, and the case provides additional charges for a total runtime of around 28 hours. This is another one of the minor differences between the OpenFits and the OpenFit Airs though, where the regular OpenFits get 7 hours on the buds themselves, where the OpenFit Airs get 6 hours. Oh, and if the buds are completely empty, you can place them in the case for just like 10 minutes to get 2 hours of listening time with its quick charge feature. The case itself charges via USB-C, and it's basically the same size as the regular OpenFits, but one thing that's missing from both the OpenFits as well as the OpenFit Airs is that neither of these have wireless charging. And for call quality, so this is what the microphones sound like on the new OpenFit Airs.
basically just a quiet room, a little bit of an echo in here.
So with these new OpenFit Airs, although they have a much lower price tag than the original OpenFits, there's really very few compromises with these. The sound quality is still excellent. I actually find these to be more comfortable, and they actually have a lot more premium look too. There's some smaller ticket items like the slightly longer battery life, along with a slightly more rich and full sound out of the originals, but it's actually hard for me to justify spending $50 more on the OpenFits. These are really good. Now, I do still think that there's a place for bone conduction headphones, and I think it mainly comes down to security with the wraparound design. That's really going to be the most secure thing that you can get. And if you're worried about water resistance, those are going to be better in that department as well. But with where air conduction is at this point, I think air conduction works really well for most activities, and you're getting much higher sound quality. Anyhow, I'll have a link down in the description below where you can pick these up if you'd like, and that is an affiliate link that does help support the channel without costing you anything additional, but it is just a great way of supporting the channel if you like seeing content like this. And if you have any questions about the OpenFit Airs that I didn't cover, feel free to drop those down in the comment section down below, and be on the lookout for lots more content just like this that's coming soon. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.